It's like to me, I see the trajectory that humanity was on before the dawn of the central banking. It was we were on a beautiful trajectory, right? And along with central banking came the fall of everything else. It's all like, you know, it's not money being the root of all evil. It's bad money. It's evil money being the root of all evil, right? And so everything has collapsed since then. Everything has become short time preference, and it's all been designed to kind of like keep us in this on this hamster wheel and keep us disempowered, right? And so to me, Bitcoin brings us back into this like, what can humanity do? A few years ago, I was didn't have an aim anywhere. I was just working as a carpenter or whatever, dead end, blah, not very happy, arguing at home, this kind of stuff, you know. And my kids, both of them, they see the change, the shift in us, of what a fulfilled human being looks like, you know. I was sitting with my wife Una, and I said, "Hey, I want to do a work with 21 million or something." And she's a jeweler, and the first thing that she said was a cube of beads. What we were mostly taught, more than like particular techniques and so on. Yes, we could get tuition and those if we needed, but it was much more to do with the conceptualization. And I mean, I guess I do draw on that every day, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything that my life has been gearing towards. You know, all of the philosophies, all of the, you know, the attitudes, the aims, the goals, everything. It was just like Bitcoin is the vehicle to untether us from those shackles, you know, and to then through that discover what humanity can really do. So Bitcoin is beautiful, but it's only the vehicle. The really beautiful thing is us, because I've spent in a way my life looking for this. This is what I want to give my life back to. You know what I mean?
Welcome to Share Your Bitcoin Journey, presented by Bitcoin for the Arts. I'm Dion Wilson, the founder and executive director of Bitcoin for the Arts, the first 501c3 nonprofit funding artists with Bitcoin grants, education, and sovereign funding tools. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with a conceptual multimedia artist classically trained in London who walked away from the arts establishment in both London and Reykjavik out of frustration with the status quo, and who now lives with his wife and children in the mountains of central Italy, quietly producing some of the most rigorous fine art anywhere in the Bitcoin space today. His practice carries a two-word tagline: Depicting Bitcoin. He has folded his entire artistic identity into that single subject, and it has, in his own words, given purpose to both his art and his life in general. His most consequential work to date is a monumental oil painting titled The Whole Entire Universe, which debuted at the Bitcoin 2026 conference in Las Vegas. His work is being collected and exhibited in what feels like the emerging citadels of Bitcoin: Lugano Plan B in Switzerland, the Venetian in Las Vegas, a planned monumental public sculpture in Roatán in the offshore Bitcoin community there. This is not the museum circuit. This is a new patronage geography built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, and Anik is already one of its most serious inhabitants. In this conversation, we go back to the beginning: classical training in London and what that forge gave him that he still uses every day, the disillusionment that pulled him first to Reykjavik and then to the mountains of Italy, how Bitcoin first clicked, and why it became not just a subject, but the subject of his entire practice, the math and the meaning behind the whole entire universe, building an artistic household with his wife and children, the question of what a renaissance in serious craft looks like when it happens outside of MoMA and inside of Lugano, Roatán, and a studio in a mountain village, and what it means to be a father making work today in a sound monetary system designed with the next generation in mind. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Anik Malcolm. Anik,
Dion, thank you so much. You're too kind, man. I'm sitting here kind of like melting. It's very kind of you to say these very nice things. Thank you. Hello. Thanks for having me on.
welcome to share your Bitcoin journey, man. Take us back to the
Thank you.
beginning. When did you know you were going to spend your life making things, and what did making things mean to you as a kid?
Yeah, since I was a kid, that's it. Since I was knee high to a grasshopper, man, I was drawing things. I was just spent every free minute I had drawing things, making things, and that's yeah. I had a couple of other, the couple of other ideas of what I would maybe one day like to be when I grow up. Still working on that one, but it was always an artist, you know. It was always that was the key thing, and so. Yeah, it's been a lifelong passion, interrupted by hiccups here and there, but I've never stopped creating since I was a kid. I've always been involved in something or other.
Classically, training in London is a particular kind of forge. There's a craft
Yes.
discipline there that not many
Mhm.
artists go through anymore. What did the London training give you that you still draw on every day, even now that you've broken away from that world?
Yeah, well, so I went to there were two courses available at the time. I always wanted to go to art school, and so that was after, normal schooling. That was my only option was to go to art school. So, and there were two courses that were quite groundbreaking at the time in London because they were broad fine art courses as opposed to painting or sculpture, which are the more traditional means of doing it. These were broad fine art ones, and I definitely wanted to go to that so that I could be interdisciplinary, and so what we were mostly taught, more than like particular techniques and so on. Yes, we could get tuition in those if we needed, but it was much more to do with a conceptualization. Um, and I mean, I guess I do draw on that every day, and it's a way for me also. It's kind of like the way that you read literature or watch films or even live life. You can it's pattern recognition, It's seeing how things bear different meanings, how things symbolize different things, how to glean meaning from things. And I think it goes way beyond just art. It goes into, yeah, it's philosophy. It's viewing the world, and I've always liked doing that kind of thing, recognizing patterns and trying to make sense of it and put it all into perspective, into the bigger picture, And that's what we very much learned to do in that school in a formal way. And I really enjoyed that.
You describe becoming disillusioned with the
Mm,
establishment in both London
mm,
and later in Reykjavik.
yeah.
Disillusionment usually is a moment, not a slow fade. Was there a
Mm.
specific encounter, exhibition, or conversation that broke that spell for you?
Actually, yeah, I think there was one point. I had moved to Reykjavik, and I was working with my wife, my current wife, and we were doing a big like conceptual sculpture together. There was like this old disheveled kind of like gallery space that used to be a horse stable, so it was very rustical, right? Just like one space, and we made a model of exact model, like I measured every detail and everything was perfectly done. So it was a third of the size, or 1/27th, but the measurements were a third of the size of this room, suspended in the middle of the room. So you could look through the windows, which were all done with glass and everything, look through the windows into the gallery space that you were actually standing in. And this is like the first proper work I'd done for a long time. And it was, I have to say, it was really quite cool and got a lot of good attention. Um, and so off the back of this, we we were doing a model. Our next piece was going to be a model of this very famous bar where all the like artists and musicians and mavericks gathered, you know. It's a very famous bar in Iceland at the time, but it had closed due to this gentrification, actually, the touristification of Iceland. Many such stories. And so this is one of many places that got closed down to make way for hotels and all this kind of stuff. And so what we were doing was we were wanting to make a model of this place as a kind of monument to this culture that was being erased, right? So and it was much smaller. It was 1/9 size. So I'd done all the measurements and we were building this model. And then this one gallery approached us because they were wanting to reconstruct this bar in London at some kind of exhibition in London. And so they're like, hey, we heard you got all the measurements. Can we make use of the measurements and stuff? And we're like, yeah, sure. I'm sure this is some kind of two-way, mutually beneficial thing. And we turned up to this meeting with all my data on a CD and stuff. And sitting there with this board of gallery representatives, right? Uh, and I was handing over the CD of this passion work of us, and there was of ours, and it was so transactionary. It was so I really it's hard to put into words, but I got this feeling of the system, the fiat system sitting there getting stuff, which for us was our passion, right? As this transactionary thing. And then as a counter offer, they offered us to exhibit in the Icelandic First Lady's residence in London. And we were like, no, there's no way we're doing that. And so that was it. And that was we then in that moment, just like that was the final straw for me in a way. I just like had this just such, it was a, yeah, as I said, it's hard to put into words because it wasn't like, oh my God, really? They did that? It wasn't that. It was just this kind of like I was sitting there with the suits, and that became very like darkly apparent to me. And so, yeah, that's my answer. But there were many. It was like a gradual thing. It had happened in many small increments, but that was like to me like the final step of like, and then just like observing how all the other artists around were all like licking the same boots and this stuff that in order to keep their career alive. And it was just like, no, man, I'm not having any of this. I'm not playing that game. I'm not sacrificing myself to the Moloch of the yeah, the suits basically. So yeah, that was
So
the
what
moment.
so what did Iceland do for your thinking as an artist that maybe changed that didn't happen in London?
Well, in London, I was living though I went to art school, we had a band like we were in the London hip hop scene, very active there, and actually doing quite well. Me and my group of friends. And because London is so big, it's very insular. So you get these little scenes and they don't touch each other at all. Um, and then when I went to Reykjavik, I just went by myself. I'd like dropped everything and didn't know anyone and just had my belongings in a bag and just like off to start a new life kind of thing. And there it's much smaller. There's only 300,000 people in Reykjavik. So there's much more cross-pollination going on, much more it's less insular. So the hip hop crowd will hang out with the rave crowd, who will hang out with the classical crowd, etc., etc. Everyone knows everyone. And so there I kind of like dropped a lot of the dogma that I had acquired through being in these different insular scenes, and I kind of like allowed much more inspiration from other places to come. And then it was great. I had an amazing time there. At the beginning, it was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, it was a very
And
creative burst for me then.
there's a small Bitcoin community there, right?
There is, yeah, 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 yeah. And sadly, I didn't know them. Well, I wasn't in Bitcoin at the time. But yeah, there is. And I know a few of the, like, I actually randomly knew, like, I did a mural for one of the guys there before I knew this. So we kind of like, since then, and be like, oh my gosh, that's you. How funny. Yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of guys out there. They're
Mhm.
cool.
All right. So then came Central Italy, the mountains,
Yes.
your wife and your
Hmm.
children. So
Hmm.
that's a meaningful relocation. There's a
Yes.
long European tradition of artists withdrawing from major cities to do their most serious work. What did the
Mm.
move to Italy unlock for you that cities could not?
Peace, space, dislocation from like we left Iceland for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons was the whole COVID business, and where we very quickly learned how fickle so-called friendships can be, as many people discovered. And we were just suddenly from being like, very down with everyone and just like, just being having a very active social life to just like being completely shunned from society. And that was a shock to us. And we decided, okay, now's the time to fulfill this dream that we've always had of like, having a house in the countryside and growing food and stuff. And so I was talking to my wife, Una, about this just a couple of nights ago, actually, how it has afforded us this space to A, not have a busy social life, B, not be overly influenced by both things you see and do, but also kind of like energetically the things around you, and just being a little bit, detached from everything. We have friends here and so on. We live just outside a village, and we go to things occasionally, but for the most part, we're just at home working on our things. And so she has experienced a career surge because she's for the first time being able to really focus on her work. I've experienced a career surge or the complete beginning of a new career. Uh, just being able to take time and space and just be in that bubble and really just focus on what it is that we want to be doing, not distracted by anything else. That's amazing.
Before Bitcoin clicked for you, you were already
Mm.
doing music and urban art projects. You'd been searching for a channel that would hold everything you were feeling about the status quo. How did you first encounter Bitcoin, and at what point did you realize this wasn't going to be a passing interest, but the subject of the rest of your artistic life?
It was well, so the reason I'd heard about it before, um, from one of the rappers from Hieroglyphics, like back in 2012 or something. But A, I never had any money. B, I wasn't a technical person, so this was something that was like, okay, interesting, but it's has nothing to do with me, and none of my friends were into it or anything like that. I didn't know anyone who ever mentioned Bitcoin. And then when we had a little flat in Reykjavik, which rose a lot in value at the time, and we sold that. And suddenly, after buying this place, we had leftover money, and I was not going to put that into the banks. I was very heavily involved in the anti-bankers protests in Iceland at the time, in 2009 at the beginning, actually. Um, and so there was no way I was going to put what we had left into the banks, and I kind of looked around for options. Uh, and as soon as I discovered Bitcoin and the Bitcoin community, I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything that my life has been gearing towards, all of the philosophies, all of the attitudes, the aims, the goals, everything. It was just like it was like, wow, this is what I've been looking for. Because like I had always been like aware of how corrupt the system is, like deeply aware, um, and thinking like there is no real solution to how we get out of this. And Bitcoin, for the first time, provided a real actionable solution, And so I just went, from discovering it to being full on, just like I am a full on Bitcoiner was almost instantaneous. Um, and then shortly after that, I discovered the whole cultural scene around it through the Art of Freedom podcast, and that was it. And I was like, right, this is what I've got to do, and it just resurrected my art career. I was like, you know, this is for me, man. This is what I want to be doing. And I've just been at it nonstop since. That was like I did my first exhibition just under 3 years ago now in El Salvador, and I've just been nonstop since. Barely a break.
So it didn't take you very long to be convicted by Bitcoin? Like you
Mm.
just kind of you understood the principles and you were aligned
Mm.
immediately.
Yeah, because I mean, I kind of like the way I see it. There's like people like that who have like old school conspiracy theorists and stuff like that who've just been researching how the system is designed to not work for many years. In my case, it was since I was a kid, really. Um, or they discover Bitcoin and then they discover all of that stuff, you know. So like, oh my God, it's all corrupt and it's all screwed, and Bitcoin's the only way out. And so I had like spent a lifetime gathering information about, governments and money and science and all of this stuff. Um, and when I found Bitcoin, that kind of encapsulated all of that. So it was just like I was like, this is it. This is what you've been looking for, man. Uh, so yeah,
On your website, you describe Bitcoin as having given purpose to both your art and your life in general. A lot of
yeah.
Bitcoiners feel that way. But to put
Mm.
it at the center of an entire career, that's commitment few artists make in any single subject. What gave you the conviction to fold your whole artistic identity into one theme?
Well, I'm a very passionate person, and Bitcoin provides so much inspiration for passion, and there are so many subjects within it. Like people assume that I'm a mathematician, right? I'm not at all. I just discovered these crazy numbers per chance, and so then I spend the next couple of years, many years possibly, working on this mathematical thing. Other people, the work that Fractal does, he also goes into the numbers and the codes and the coincidences. Other people are more about the freedom aspect of it, or so on. And like, there's so much wealth. To explore within it. I'm talking about, conceptual wealth, uh, as opposed to monetary. But and yeah, no, to me there is so much to be. It's just like, like when you're at art school, you get given a brief of like, okay, now you do a thing about time, and then people do their various things about time. Uh, and to be presented with Bitcoin, and you've got so many aspects of it. Basically, it's life. It's the way humanity should be. It's history. There's so much to it. So it's like you know, because I was because I've spent in a way my life looking for this. This is what I want to give my life back to. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm
As a
just
big,
deeply grateful. Sorry.
no, go ahead, finish, please. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm just deeply grateful, and I have a lot of energy to put into it, and that's what I'm doing.
As a Bitcoiner myself, Anik, I can totally relate to that message. That is why we are
Right.
sitting here today. That is precisely
Yes.
why I started Bitcoin for the Arts, because as you say, there's so much to Bitcoin. And this is why we're here, because I want to try and get the world to really understand the magnitude of this protocol. Yes, we talk about the principles of it being money, but there's so many elements and aspects to Bitcoin that artists like Onik and myself can find ways to say that we want to spend the rest of our life dedicated to these principles and this understanding and this way of living. It totally
Mhm.
makes sense.
Exactly. It's like to me, I see the trajectory that humanity was on before the dawn of the central banking. We were on a beautiful trajectory, right? And along with central banking came the fall of everything else. It's all like, it's not money being the root of all evil. It's bad money. It's evil money being the root of all evil, right? And so everything has collapsed since then. Everything has become short time preference, and it's all been designed to kind of like keep us in this on this hamster wheel and keep us disempowered, right? And so to me, Bitcoin brings us back into this like, what can humanity do? it's a full-on Renaissance thing, man. And that's why I'm so incredibly passionate about it, inspired by it. Um, so yeah, that's what artists should do, right? They should show what inspires them.
The tagline on your website, Depicting Bitcoin, 2 words. What do you
Mm.
say to those other artists who are afraid of committing that hard to a single subject?
No, I mean, a lot of my friends now, like people I consider close friends, are Bitcoin artists, and I think they do the same. I think that all of the people that friends I meet at the different exhibitions and so on, they have the same passion about it, and so yeah. And yeah, I see where you're coming from. I mean, I'd never even considered that actually that people might be a little bit hesitant to do that. Um, uh, but then there are other people, there are like I've started now working. Do you know Start with Sats? Millie from Start with Sats. She's
Yes, I
started a
just
thing where
actually
she's trying
spoke
to
with her
exactly.
yesterday.
Did you? Great,
Yes.
fantastic news. I think she's got a lot of potential, man. And like she like this thing that she posted yesterday about exhibiting one of her own works at the Hyatt, right? Am I saying that? It's a Hyatt hotel,
At the
right?
Hyatt Regency,
Opposite
yes.
the, yeah, exactly. And that's amazing. And being able to bring, we need people like her who can bring this into the real world, and show it to those kind of people. So I think bridging that gap that currently does exist is a very important step for Bitcoin art. And I think the more that happens, the less fear potentially artists might feel towards that commitment. If the more publicly accepted it becomes, the less kind of like, oh, I'm a Bitcoin artist, and people, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Kind of got, I guess, a little bit of a oh, I don't know. People imagine things when you say that, right? I think it
Okay.
needs more public acceptance. Mm.
All right, let's talk about it. The whole entire universe, the painting that
Yes.
debuted at Bitcoin 2026 in Las Vegas. The math
Yeah.
is genuinely beautiful. Explain it
Thank you.
to us.
Okay. I did a whole animation video because I apparently have a hard time explaining it to people. So I did an explanation video, which you can find. It's on my X, Anik Malcolm, pinned tweet. It's also on my website, anikmalcolm.com. So have a look at that. It's a little video. It's quite entertaining. Um, which kind of has to be if you're dealing with cold, hard numbers, man. You have to make it a little bit entertaining. But I showed that recently at the Warsaw Film Festival, at the Bitcoin Film Festival in Warsaw, which is an amazing event. I urge everyone to go there next year. It's great. Um, but so yeah, basically it happened like this. I wanted to I was working on the buy Bitcoin paintings that I was doing at the time. And I was sitting with my wife Una, and I said, "Hey, I want to do a work with 21 million of something." And she's a jeweler, and the first thing that she said was a cube of beads, 21 million beads. I was like, yeah, brilliant, that's perfect, because cubes very common, obviously, because of the block in Bitcoin. 21 million beads, that's perfect. They're tiny, it's possible to do. And my mind instantly started like, okay, how can I do this? And I realized that 21 million is not, you can't put that neatly into a cube because it's not a cube root number, right? So I found the nearest cube root number, which is 276, which I don't know if you can see, that is this
Mm-hmm.
length here, 276. And if you cube that, so make a cube of 276, you get 21,024,756. And so I was like, right, uh, if I want to get this cube nice, then I have to take 24,576 away from it. And I was like, okay, if that divides by six, that number, then I can take the same amount from each side, from each face of the cube, and then I get a neat 21 million. And so I did 24,576 divided by six, and it turns out exactly 4,096. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I can do this. I can make it nice and neat. And then I'm like, okay, so I've got 4,096 beads taken from the
Hmm.
surface of each surface of this cube, right? I was like, hang on though. Because it's a cube, you're dealing with squares. Wouldn't it be nice if you could remove a square, do this in the square form? And I'm like, hang on, I recognize that number 4096. And I put 4096, divide a square root into the calculator, and it turns out exactly 64. And I was mind blown because it's like, no way I can make this 21 million cube uh, and taking away, I'll remove this so you can see a little bit better.
Hmm.
Removing a square from each side from each surface of the cube. And that
Wow.
was nuts. And then I realized, well, 64, that divides by two, which divides by two. It's a power of two, right? So 64 divides into 32, so you've got 32 by 32, which divides into 16, so you've got 16 by 16, and then on the other side, 8, 4, and 2. And I was like, no way. And because this way, you not only get the 21 million in a neat cube, but you also get this halving mechanism and this exponential growth all like in one thing. And this is why I kind of like use the tagline depicting Bitcoin, because in a way, to me, this is such a like a visual representation of Bitcoin. It's all 21 million Bitcoin, the scarcity, the block, and this halving and growth attribute of it as well. Also, if you count here, the 16 plus 4 plus 1 is 21. So there's 21 squares there. 64 written as binary is 1 million. So 1 0 0 0 0 0 0. So and there's many other things I've since discovered that make this so incredibly special. And I did like kind of like I was like, no way, there's no way this like can be a coincidence. And I kind of like did the numbers on like how um likely it would be for this pattern to be able to fit into a cube. And 21 million is the smallest like round number that this works with, like a clean number. It doesn't work. I went through all the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. 21 million is the smallest. And then the next biggest is in the billions. So the chances of 21 million, the number, like no one knows for sure why that number was chosen, of that being able to be presented in this manner is like if you take 8 billion people in the world, only 15 people. So that is the chances of 15 in 8 billion, which is like either a crazy coincidence or it's intentional. And if it's intentional, why? And that's why I've been putting so much work into this. And actually, there's some guys from the Bitcoin Lens. They picked up on it. They are working with Jeff Booth on their theories, which are questioning our understanding of time in relation to the blocks and the inherent time frame of the block structure. These are like very serious there's some very serious things being done, and they're wanting to, they're kind of like using this as a point of reference somehow. So
Hmm.
it's super interesting. And I'm not a mathematical philosopher. I don't know why it's like that or what the meaning of it is, but all I can do is present it and hope that someone like these guys from the Bitcoin Lens are able to see the meaning inside it that there seems to be, at least, to put it that way.
So what you're telling us is that there is potentially another deeper philosophical layer to uncover in Bitcoin as to what it represents mathematically.
It seems to be
This
that
is,
way, and I think there are many, many things that we have yet to discover. Um, we're just in the infancy of Bitcoin. I think there's many things that are gonna come to light. This is just, if there is something to this, if it's not just me recognizing some random pattern, um, then it's just one of many things that we are yet to discover.
so another reason why there's so many different things to Bitcoin and why we can spend our lives dedicated to Bitcoin.
Right, 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 exactly. I mean, it's It's, that's what I'm saying. There's so much inspiration in it. And even if nothing else, it's just beautiful. It's just elegant. It's this mathematical elegance that is super beautiful. And that's what Bitcoin is. It's elegant, it's beautiful, it's simple. Nature loves simplicity. It loves simple patterns, you know?
You mentioned your wife Una is a jeweler and an
Mm.
artist as well. You're raising
Yes.
children together in the mountains in central Italy, both making work, both thinking about money and meaning. How does the household function as a creative unit? Does the work bleed between you, or do you keep your practices separate?
We have, I mean, like for instance, she with that example earlier on that she came up with the idea of 20 a cube with 21 million beads. So we do cross-pollinate to a degree, sometimes more, sometimes less. Like we're also kind of like toying with children's book ideas, and we had a band together for many years. So there's lots of things that we do together. And there's things that we do separately. Like the Bitcoin art practice is very much my thing. Her jewelry is very much her thing. Um, though, like when I really want to do the sculpture version of this as soon as I have the time and money to do so. And she'll definitely be helping with doing that. So um, yeah, it's a bit of both. But we're both the kind of people that like kind of like just getting stuck in in the job at hand and just like getting it done without having to talk too much about it.
The painting took you over 900 hours. That number alone is the kind of statement that low time preference is made literal. The most Bitcoin thing about the painting may not be its subject. It may be that you sat with it for 900 hours. Was that deliberate?
Mm. No, it was just a function of what it was. Like, I've always been someone that can spend a lot of time, and it's kind of been a theme of my work since since I was at art school. So it's kind of like part of my nature to do these very elaborate things, but it's the only way to do it. I mean, this is now a commission I'm doing, the one um that is at the uh, Bitcoin Museum and Gallery in Nashville. Uh, it's practically the same. It's slightly different in its color scheme, but I wanted to do it, paint it realistically so people understand what it is, and I have yet to do that. This is very much the beginning stages. Um, but like each bead has to be shaded and highlighted and individually painted and all of that stuff. So it just takes time. Um, and there's no shortcut to it. If you're going to make an oil painting of it, it's just going to take time. And luckily, I'm the kind of person that can spend a ridiculous amount of time doing one thing. So yeah, I don't think many people couldn't, and that's nothing bad. That's probably much more sane. But yeah, I'm someone that does enjoy that kind of work, like almost monk-like work. And that's kind of part in a way that fits into it as well. This uh, meditative monk-like kind of what we're doing, right? In a way.
Yeah. The medium choice is really fascinating. Uh, Bitcoin imagery has been dominated by glossy digital aesthetics, vector, laser eyes, neon, futuristic typography. You went the other direction completely. Oil painting, classic technique, a physical
Mhm.
object that exists in real space. Why oil?
Yeah.
Why classic technique for a subject that exists in code?
Because I have always liked, like, I recently heard the phrase "proof of human," and that like very much encapsulates like the philosophy to a lot of the work that I've done since school time as well. I like this human element, and in especially in imagery that could otherwise be printed. I think that eye is naturally drawn to the human element, the thing that makes it intrinsically human, the small irregularities, the all of this kind of stuff, which I did a printed version, like a graphic version as well, just to see what it would look like. And it's just much more austere. It's colder. It doesn't have the same. the same warmth to it. And then oil, it looks beautiful. It lasts forever. Um, Not literally, but it lasts for a long time. And it's just, yeah, I think also it kind of like it has this Renaissance thing that I think I share with a lot of other people, like that we're building this new Renaissance, you know. And then there's artists like Cinia and Pepinado, who also use oils and so on, Tommy as well. And I think it's also um, Naples. There are many people that use this medium, and I think it's yeah, it's a nice way to kind of marry this futuristic thinking with this kind of like traditional honoring the craft technique, you know.
Hmm.
I keep on having to relight my cigarettes.
Look at where your work has been shown and where it's headed. Lugano Plan B, a Swiss city that actively embraces Bitcoin, the Venetian in Las Vegas for the Bitcoin 2026 conference, the largest Bitcoin conference in the world, a planned monumental public sculpture in Roatán, an offshore Bitcoin community. That's a very specific map. You've been collected and exhibited in the most emerging citadels in Bitcoin, not in the traditional museum circuit. Was that a conscious strategy or did the work just pull you there?
I think it pulled me there. I mean, we Bitcoin artists do are quite I don't want to say dependent, but we are very much we do tend to congregate at least at these conferences, which are in these places, you know, Prague as well recently, El Salvador too, the Adopting Bitcoin, which was my first one. So you just get, you apply to these events where you get obviously a lot of exposure because there's a lot of Bitcoiners there. There are other Bitcoin artists. You have like-minded people there with who understand instantly, you know. So I do think yeah, it's something that you kind of like in order to be relevant within the Bitcoin art space, it's something that, yeah, you don't have to do, but it's a good thing to do for sure, you know, to be in these, and also to kind of like push each other and to create this community, this feeling. We are very much, um, yeah, there's a strong community feeling within it, and it's nice to foster that, you know, and to I love it. Like you get to hang out with these fellow Bitcoin artists, and it's like I feel so alive then, you know, because you're all on the same page and you all have the same goals and aims and different methods of portraying that, and it's love, man, basically. Yeah.
I know the feeling. It feels great when you finally meet like
Right.
some Bitcoiners that really like understand it the way you do and appreciate it the way you
Yeah.
do. Is because it's not
Yeah.
easy at this
Yeah.
point for us. So,
No. Man, like the one in the first one I went to that was that Fractal curated in El Salvador. That was the first time I'd like properly met Bitcoiners on a, you know, on a grand scale, and it just nuts. I was mind blown. I was just
yeah.
like in a permanent state of just like wow, o overwhelm almost, you know. It was great.
The Roatán Public Sculpture is your next major project. What can you tell us about what you're planning? How does scale change the meaning when the work leaves the gallery and becomes a part of a place?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. It's we like currently there are two separate like two different ideas of how best to do this. I can't give away too much on it at the moment. But to address the question of like the one idea, and I really like this, is putting it into a place which is more disadvantaged. So it's not you know, in the where Bitcoiners tend to go. They're planning on putting it more into the a place where it needs it, and it would be fulfilling a function as well that would be very useful to that community. And so I think, yeah, like what I was saying earlier on about start with sats. I think it's very important that we bring the message, uh, especially this liberating, empowering message of Bitcoin to the broader to the broader uh, public, and like especially this because like if I were to do this with 1 centimeter size beads, it would be 5 meters tall. Hang on, no, with a space between. Okay, so it's very big. If I were to do this, and I think there's something nice about this large, monumental, because that's what Bitcoin is, right? It's monumental, and I would like to create something that does inspire the awe in newcomers or people that don't know what it's about, in the same way that Bitcoin inspires awe in those of us who do know what it's about. So yeah,
There's a real question underneath all of this, whether the next renaissance in serious craft is going to happen inside or outside the traditional art establishment. You've explicitly chosen outside. What does a renaissance look like being built in Lugano, in Roatán, at the conferences, in artists'
mm,
studios, in the mountain villages? What can it
mm.
produce that the MoMA or the Met cannot?
Well, I mean, I'm a little bit biased because I've got a lot of I really don't like the art establishment very much at all. And I think it's kind of imploding on itself a little bit. It's just a caricature of itself. Like as an example, that famous banana piece, right? It's just like a caricature of itself. I don't think it's got anywhere to go. It's kind of run its course a little bit. And then especially if you consider to the extent to which it was influenced, by such entities as the CIA and things like this. I want to be careful what I say here, but and stuff like this, where it has been used to seed a cultural narrative, and when it starts becoming a propaganda arm, then it's over, um, and then it's not human anymore. Then it's not expressing uh, the soul of humanity. And I believe that that Bitcoin art is doing that. It's to me, it's the first truly grassroots cultural phenomenon to have happened in a long time that carries serious weight. Um, and so I just believe in that fully, and I want to, I am investing my life into to contributing to that renaissance and to that, giving humanity something beautiful, something aspirational, something to be inspired by. So yeah, that's what I see happening, and it will happen, as you say, in places like Lugano and Prague and these things, and it will grow from there, and it will eventually spill out and spill over into the broader world. At least that's what I hope, and that's what I envisage happening, you know, as people become more and more excited by it.
And it's because of artists like you, Anik, that are taking the time to make the commitment to show what you are experiencing and what you are being inspired by that is going to open the doors and allow somebody else to receive that inspiration. And hopefully,
Right,
that will, in addition to the principles of Bitcoin, we will also be able to cultivate people by artists such as yourself doing exactly what you're doing, using your artwork to show really that this thing is much bigger than really what we can see it as. And as you say, we haven't uncovered how far and how much there is to Bitcoin. We still don't know everything there is to understand and
right.
discover about it. You have children.
And
Hmm.
mm,
Go ahead.
also what it can empower humanity to do. I believe we have been so suppressed for so long, that we don't actually know what humanity is. We have no idea of what our capabilities are, really. And I do believe, and I can go on about this at length, which I'm not going to do now, but uh, the things, the undiscovered or untapped potential of humanity, which is vast. And I do believe that Bitcoin is the the vehicle to untether us from those shackles, and to then through that discover what humanity can really do. So Bitcoin is beautiful, but it's only the vehicle. The really beautiful thing is us, you know?
Mm. You have children. You're making art that depicts a hard money system that's being designed with your kids' generation specifically in mind. How does
Mhm.
fatherhood inform what you're putting on the canvas? When you imagine your kids seeing the whole entire universe 20 years from now, what do you want them to understand about why you made it?
I had a beautiful experience when I was doing the one that I showed in Vegas that's now in Nashville. I was doing the final touches on it, and it was drying in our bedroom because it was spring at the time and it was still quite cold in the studio. So it was drying upstairs. And my daughter, they're both teenagers. They had both like been coming in and out of the studio while I was working on it and so on and da, da, da. And while it was there in the bedroom drying, my daughter came in one time while I was there and she just stood there and she said, "Sometimes I just come in here just to be with the painting for a while." That just like touched me so deeply because it's as far as I see it, well, no, but I would imagine that most outside eyes would just see it as something quite, technical and dry and so on. And the fact that it gave her this emotional response was really moving to me. I think what they have seen through me on this journey in the last few years as an artist is um, belief and passion and dedication, and the fact that when you really have a drive to do something, you can make it happen. And I think that's beautiful. I don't need to say that to them. They see it. They see that a few years ago I was didn't have an aim anywhere. I was just working as a carpenter or whatever, dead end, blah, not very happy, arguing at home, this kind of stuff. And my kids, both of them, they see the change, the shift in us, of what a fulfilled human being looks like. And so they've actually had a real demonstration of like, yeah, you when you put your mind to something, when you follow your passions, that you can really, yeah, that can become who you are. And I think that's a beautiful lesson.
It sounds like what you're saying is Bitcoin gave you purpose that you could understand and resonate with, and something that gave you not only a purpose, but the inspiration and the ambition to fulfill that purpose.
Yeah. Well, before Bitcoin, I've always like a lot of my like whether it be music or art, a lot of pretty much all that I did creatively before was had the same message as what I'm doing now. No, it wasn't the mathematics of Bitcoin, obviously, but it was the same kind of like empowerment of humanity. It was the same kind of like, untapped potential of who we are. This kind of thing has always been an underlying theme of my work. But before Bitcoin, I was just like, you know, butting my head up to a wall because people don't want to hear that. The normie world, they can't fathom this. So it was like I knew something that I couldn't convey because people weren't ready to hear it, like as we discovered during COVID and all this kind of stuff, or as you discover when you're trying to orange pill people. It's if people aren't ready to hear it, they're not going to hear it. So it was very frustrating, kind of trying to convey these messages for just get returned to sender basically. And now through Bitcoin, I find that, these things that I have inside of here, they can connect and they have a receiver and that idea then flourishes into something else. So, and that's a beautiful thing, it's like making things with a purpose rather than um, to be just like, okay, you know, yeah, that's kind of what you want as an artist, right? You want it to resonate, you want it to, and now finally it can, you know. Now I've got an audience that understands.
What's the next major work after the Roatán sculpture? Where is your practice heading over the next 5 to 10 years?
Ooh. Well, I've got the thing that I'm doing for Lugano as soon as I finish this commission here is quite different actually. It's not within the whole entire universe thing, but and I don't know, like the Roatan thing is like it's still very much in planning phase, so we don't know, like there's no time frame on that at the moment, basically. But I would like to as a number of people have pointed out, this is a kind of concept that takes repetition for people for it to slowly sink in, So I want to be doing as many versions of this as I can. You know, when we have the tech for it, I'd love to do a drone show version for it. I would like to do various sculptures. I want to do a home size sculpture of it. I want to do, I could do nano style thing, whatever. I want to explore all the possibilities. I want basically, I would love this elegant mathematics to reach as many people as possible in as many ways as possible. Like this friend of mine from Bitcoin Timber, he made this small cube version, a desktop cube version out of purple heart wood. Super beautiful. And yeah, so as many different versions in light pixels and there's so many options, so many possibilities to do with it.
So Bitcoin
Yeah,
Timber was inspired by your work and he made small replicas of it.
yeah, yeah. And people were really enthusiastic about them. And then Italian bureaucracy got in the way, so they're kind of floating between the two countries at the moment. Long story, but yeah, it's a
Okay.
beautiful thing, and so yeah, maybe we'll
So
do other
already
color versions as well.
you're already
What's that, sorry?
inspiring the world. You're already inspiring the world. You're
Well, Bitcoin's inspiring me, and I'm just wanting to share that inspiration. It's not me doing it. And that's the kind of beautiful thing. It's not mine. I'm just depicting Bitcoin, man. There's no ego involved, which is a beautiful thing. It means that I can talk about it as much as I want. And it's not like, hey, look at my stuff. It's like, hey, look at Bitcoin.
mm.
And that I find very liberating because I hate selling myself. But if I'm selling beautiful mathematics of Bitcoin, piece of cake. Come, everyone, look at this.
Anik, where can our audience find you?
Well, I'm mostly an X, I'm very busy there. Anik Malcolm. It's AnikMalcolm. And that's also anikmalcolm.com. I'm on Nosta as Anik Malcolm. I've got a few videos on the YouTube channel. I don't use or like YouTube very much, but it's there. Also Anik Malcolm. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Last question we ask every guest on this Share Your Bitcoin Journey series. If a $500 to $2,000 Bitcoin micro grant from Bitcoin for the Arts landed in your wallet tomorrow, what would it unlock for you as a creator?
Okay, I would want to get some of the way towards having the materials necessary to make the sculpture version of it, the small sculpture version. I'd love to do that. It's expensive material costs. It would get me some of the way there, and I would love to be able to do that. Yeah, that's what it would do.
Anik, thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our listeners. This is another episode of Share Your Bitcoin Journey. Please do visit our website, bitcoinforthearts.org. Until next time.
Dion, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening. Take care. Hello, my name is Anik Malcolm, and this is a video explaining the incredibly elegant mathematics I found hidden within the sacred 21 million number, as displayed in my series of works titled The Whole Entire Universe. I sincerely hope that it can astonish you the way it has astonished me in such a profound way. Even if you're not into numbers, there is a simple beauty to it that is undeniable. My original idea was to create an artwork showing 21 million of something, so that people, including myself, could actually see what 21 million looked like. I mentioned this to my wife Una, and she responded with, "A cube of 21 million beads." I loved this idea, as it both used the solid cube form so common in Bitcoin, and also the bead, which was one of the very first methods of exchange. So I started putting it to practice. Clearly 21 million was not a number that would cleanly fit into a cube. Its cube root is in fact 275.8924176, impractical for a neat sculpture, so I thought I could round it up to the nearest whole number, 276, and take away the surplus. 276 cubed is 21,024,576. So, to make a cube of exactly 21 million, I would make a cube 276 beads high, wide and deep, and remove the remaining 24,576. As it is a cube we're dealing with, I thought it would be most symmetrically pleasing to remove the same amount from each of the 6 sides, which would only be possible if 24,576 were divisible by 6. To my very great delight, 24,576 divided by 6 yielded exactly 4,096. At this point, I started getting quietly excited, as I felt I recognized that number. Okay, so we can remove 4,096 beads from each of the 6 faces of the cube to give us exactly 21 million beads. Very cool indeed. And because it's a cube, wouldn't the neatest way to remove a layer of beads be in the shape of a square? My hands were actually shaking a little as I punched in square root of 4,096 into my calculator, and to my utter disbelief, the result was exactly 64. So, I could actually achieve a cube containing exactly 21 million beads by means of removing 6 identical squares from its surfaces. What were the chances of that? They were very small indeed, as I'll explain later. But not only that, I felt that removing the exact same square of 64 by 64 would be visually boring, but recognised that 64 could be divided in half, over and over again, and in fact exactly another 5 times before the squares became individual beads, absolutely perfect for the purposes of the cube. This repeated division by 2 yields the pattern you see in my works. 1 square of 64 by 64, then 4 squares of 32 by 32, then 16 squares of 16 by 16, down to 1024 squares of 2 by 2. This, to me, is at the same time a visual representation of the halving mechanism so integral to the entire paradigm of Bitcoin's mechanics and function, but also the exponential growth that is a direct result of that halving. To me, it is a still life of Bitcoin itself, the most literal depiction of it that could be created, and in such an incredibly elegant manner. I can say this because I didn't create it, I merely found it there, waiting to be discovered in all its mathematical beauty. One could say that you can find mathematical patterns anywhere if you look hard enough. And after having discovered this, I looked very hard to see how common this pattern is, allowing for the same power of 2 halving pattern with a clean, round number like 21 million. It turns out that this is the smallest number with which it is possible. The next smallest is 1.344 billion, after which it shoots into the trillions and quadrillions. The sheer size of the other numbers in the set, whether based on 64 or further up the powers of 2, make it very obvious how exceedingly unlikely it is that such mathematical elegance would apply to our sacred 21 million number, and how fortunate we are to be able to see it so beautifully and symbolically. Also of note, look, there are 21 squares on that image. My name is Anik Malcolm. I hope you've derived some of the pleasure that I have from this presentation. And who knows, maybe you can see a further pattern within that I had missed.